What I observe unfolding in near-Earth orbit represents nothing less than the opening shots of the first war fought in space itself, while most Americans remain completely unaware that the infrastructure supporting every aspect of modern civilization hangs by a thread in an orbital environment where China has already begun systematic attacks against the satellite systems that enable GPS navigation, global communications, and the financial networks upon which our entire economies depends for basic functionality. The intelligence is crystal clear. China has deployed sophisticated anti-satellite weapons disguised as civilian space research while conducting systematic testing of satellite destruction capabilities under the cover of space debris cleanup and scientific experimentation. The People's Liberation Army has established a dedicated space warfare command with explicit missions to destroy American and allied satellite capabilities during potential conflict scenarios while maintaining plausible deniability through dual-use technology and civilian program facade operations. What troubles me most profoundly is that this space war has already begun, while America sleeps, believing that space remains peaceful, neutral territory, governed by international treaties and scientific cooperation. Chinese satellite killer weapons have already conducted live fire tests against actual satellites, while Chinese cyber capabilities systematically penetrate satellite control systems, communication networks, and GPS infrastructure that American military and civilian systems depend upon for basic operational capability. The scope of American vulnerability to Chinese space warfare extends far beyond military communications into comprehensive dependence on satellite infrastructure for civilian economic activity that most Americans take completely for granted. Banking systems require GPS timing signals for transaction processing. Aviation systems depend on satellite navigation for flight safety, shipping logistics, agricultural coordination, emergency services, power grid management, all operate through satellite communications and positioning systems that Chinese space weapons could eliminate within hours of conflict initiation. I am analyzing the intelligence assessments that detail Chinese development of multiple satellite destruction mechanisms, including kinetic interceptors, cyber warfare capabilities, directed energy weapons, and debris generation systems that create cascading destruction throughout orbital space. The Chinese military has systematized space warfare planning with comprehensive targeting lists of American satellites, allied space assets, and critical infrastructure nodes that demonstrate sophisticated understanding of satellite vulnerability and optimal attack sequences for maximum disruption. The Kessler Syndrome represents the most catastrophic scenario that Chinese space warfare could trigger when anti-satellite weapons destroy orbital platforms. They create debris fields that collide with additional satellites, generating exponential multiplication of space debris until near-Earth orbit becomes unusable for decades. This cascade effect would permanently eliminate human space capability while rendering satellite-dependent civilization impossible to maintain and through technological means. What makes Chinese space warfare particularly dangerous is the systematic coordination between kinetic destruction, cyber penetration, and information warfare that operates simultaneously across multiple domains. Chinese hackers penetrate satellite control systems, while kinetic weapons destroy physical platforms, and information operations manipulate public understanding of space attacks through denial, disinformation, and attribution confusion that prevents effective response coordination during critical attack timelines. Congressional oversight, of American space defense reveals systematic gaps in capability development, threat assessment, and allied coordination that leave American space assets fundamentally vulnerable to Chinese attack scenarios. The Space Force operates with budgets and personnel levels insufficient for comprehensive satellite defense, while Chinese space warfare investment exceeds American defensive capability development by substantial margins. This capability gap continues widening as Chinese space warfare development accelerates while American response remains fragmented across multiple agencies and service branches. Intelligence briefings indicate that Chinese space warfare operates under comprehensive strategic planning with specific timelines for satellite destruction during Taiwan invasion scenarios or broader conflict with American forces. Chinese space warfare doctrine prioritizes early elimination of American satellite capability to prevent coordinated military response while maintaining Chinese satellite capability through hardened systems, redundant networks, and rapid replacement capabilities that American systems lack entirely. The economic implications of comprehensive satellite destruction extend far beyond immediate communication disruption into systematic collapse of economic coordination mechanisms that enable modern commercial activity, supply chain management, inventory tracking, financial transactions, transportation coordination, agricultural logistics, all depend fundamentally on satellite systems that Chinese space warfare could eliminate faster than alternative coordination systems and could be established or implemented effectively. Allied space defense coordination faces unprecedented challenges as satellite systems operate across multiple national jurisdictions, while attack attribution remains extremely difficult in space environments where debris, cyber attacks, and natural failures often produce similar observable effects. Japanese, British, and Australian satellite systems face identical vulnerabilities to Chinese space warfare, while coordination mechanisms for collective space defense remain inadequate for addressing systematic multi-domain attacks against satellite infrastructure. The technological sophistication of Chinese space warfare capabilities indicates systematic technology transfer, indigenous development, and strategic planning that exceeds previous intelligence estimates. Chinese anti-satellite weapons demonstrate precision targeting, advanced guidance systems, and coordination capabilities that suggest comprehensive space warfare, research and development programs operating over extended timelines with substantial resource allocation and strategic prioritization. Civilian impact scenarios for satellite warfare reveal comprehensive vulnerability of modern society to space-based attacks. GPS disruption would immediately affect aviation safety, maritime navigation, emergency services, ride-sharing applications, food delivery, package logistics, banking transactions, power grid coordination, and cellular communication that rely on satellite timing signals for synchronized operation. The cascade effects would compound rapidly as interconnected systems fail simultaneously without adequate backup systems or alternative coordination mechanisms. Military vulnerability to Chinese satellite attacks extends beyond communication disruption into comprehensive degradation of American military capability. Modern warfare depends fundamentally on satellite communication, GPS-guided munitions, intelligence gathering, battlefield coordination, and logistics management that satellite destruction would eliminate immediately. Chinese space warfare strategy recognizes that American military superiority depends critically on space-based assets that represent optimal targets for asymmetric warfare against superior conventional military forces. The timeline urgency surrounding Chinese space warfare development reflects intelligence assessments that indicate operational capability for comprehensive satellite attacks within current conflict planning timelines. Chinese space warfare systems undergo regular testing, capability demonstration, and operational exercises that suggest readiness for actual deployment during crisis scenarios or military conflict initiation. International law frameworks governing space warfare prove completely inadequate for addressing sophisticated space attacks that operate below traditional conflict thresholds while producing strategic effects equivalent to major military operations. The Outer Space Treaty prohibits military activities in space, but provides no enforcement mechanisms for addressing dual-use technology, cyber attacks, or debris generation that accomplish military objectives through seemingly civilian space programs or accidental equipment failures. Intelligence community assessments regarding Chinese space warfare indicate systematic underestimation of threat timelines, capability development, and strategic integration with broader Chinese military planning. Space warfare represents a critical component of Chinese strategy for achieving regional military superiority while neutralizing American military intervention capability through infrastructure destruction, rather than direct military confrontation that plays to American conventional warfare advantages. Counter-space defensive capabilities that America possesses remain limited, fragmented, and insufficient for addressing comprehensive Chinese space warfare scenarios. American satellite defense focuses primarily on debris tracking, collision avoidance, and limited hardening measures rather than active defense systems capable of intercepting attacks or providing rapid satellite replacement during conflict scenarios. The precedent implications of successful Chinese space warfare operations extend beyond bilateral conflict into systematic erosion of space-based infrastructure that enables global civilization to function once space warfare becomes normalized through successful Chinese operations. Other nations will develop similar capabilities while space environments become permanently militarized zones rather than peaceful domains for scientific and commercial and development. And regional implications of Chinese space warfare affect allied nations throughout the Pacific and globally as satellite systems serve multinational user communities, while attacks on satellite infrastructure affect civilian populations, economic systems, and military capabilities across multiple allied nations simultaneously. The collective impact creates scenarios where Chinese space warfare against American satellites produces immediate strategic effects across the entire democratic alliance structure. Recovery timelines from comprehensive satellite destruction exceed any reasonable conflict resolution expectations. Satellite manufacturing, launching, and orbital positioning require months to years for replacement, and while ground-based alternative systems cannot provide equivalent capability for the coordination, communication, and navigation functions that satellite systems enable for modern civilization operation. As I conclude this analysis, I recognize that space warfare represents the ultimate asymmetric threat to American military and economic superiority, where Chinese investment in space warfare capabilities could neutralize decades of American technological advantage through systematic destruction of the satellite infrastructure that American power depends upon for global reach and coordination capability. The decisions made about space defense, satellite protection, and counterspace capabilities will determine whether space remains a domain that supports human civilization or becomes the battlefield where civilization's technological foundation is permanently destroyed.